Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm the Guest and Education Programs Manager at the Belle of Louisville. And I'm standing in the Spirit of Kentucky exhibit at the Fraser History Museum in Louisville, Kentucky. Did you know that Kentucky has the second highest number of navigable waterways in the country? The only state that has more is Alaska. And probably the most notable of our waterways is the Ohio River. Now, the Ohio is 981 miles long. It travels past 6 states before flowing into the Mississippi River. Now, if you want to transport a large amount of cargo economically and easily, waterways are the perfect way to do that, and the Ohio is no exception. Now, in the early days of our state, you would take a flat boat from, say, Louisville down the Ohio to the Mississippi and travel on down to New Orleans. However, if you wanted to get back from New Orleans to Louisville, well, you wouldn't take your flatboat back up the river, because then you would be going against the river's current. And that takes a whole lot of energy and time that just wasn't worth it. So instead, you would travel by foot or horse, or charter a seafaring vessel and travel all the way back up the East Coast. This happened until 1812. When the first steamboat traveled from Louisville to New Orleans. Now, a steamboat used a paddle wheel, similar to the model that you see here, and a steam engine to push the boat through the water. This meant that you could travel up or down the riverways without having to worry about the direction of the current. Now, you might be wondering, what would they carry on a steamboat? Well, everything. In fact, if you could fit it on the boat, it was probably transported at some time or another. So you would have grains that might be grown locally around here. You could have livestock, furniture, hay, cotton, all kinds of things, as well as passengers. So steamboats opened up the waterways for America. In fact, today, any barges or tows that you see on the river, in a large part, is thanks to steamboats. Today, over 100 million tons of cargo is shipped on the Ohio River every year. Now we're going to go to one of my favorite places in Louisville, the Belle of Louisville. And we're going to see how a steamboat actually operated. So we're now on board the Belle of Louisville. We're actually up in her pilot house. So this is where the pilot of the Belle would be situated during a cruise. Now, behind me are all the instruments that they use to pilot the vessel. This is actually the original wheel to the Belle of Louisville. She was built in 1914. Now, the Belle is a little bit interesting because normally you'd have to turn this wheel by hand to turn the rudders to steer the boat. In fact, during the Civil War, you would hire what's called cub pilots. They would actually help the pilot turn the wheel by actually walking on the spokes if you had a really big vessel. Now, our system actually has this right here, which is a steam-powered assist. So our pilots are able to just move this lever in one direction or the other, and a steam-powered system will actually turn the wheel for them. But they can turn it by hand if need be. Now, up here in the pilot house, you're in control of the direction that the vessel goes, but you don't control the speed at all. The engines are completely out of the pilot's control. So they have to tell the engineer what they want them to do, and they use this system to do that. This is called the Telegraph. And if you look on the side of it, it has a number of different settings. So the pilot will set these levers to whichever setting they want the engineer to turn the engines to. So you might have ahead, slow. That's the engines to be pushing the boat forward slowly. And you have half, a little bit faster, and full, as fast as we can. You also have a stern, which turns the engines backwards if we want to reverse. One fun fact about the Belle, we actually turn better when going backwards. And the reason is the paddle wheel will turn more water over the rudders when it's in reverse versus forward. Now we're going to head down to the engine room to take a look at the engines for the Belle. So now we're down in the engine room. The pilot house is at the top of the vessel, and the engine room is all the way down at the bottom. This is the engineer's station. This is where they'd be waiting for the pilot's commands on what they want the engines to do. You may recognize this. This is the telegraph system that you saw up in the pilot house. This arm here is what the pilot wants the engineer to do, so they'll set it to wherever they would like it. This arm here is how the engineer will respond, and there's an equal arm up in the pilot house that will tell the pilot when they've responded. These are the original engines for the Belle of Louisville. We actually think they're older than the Belle herself. We think this because of the inscription on the brass nameplate for each engine. It reads, James Reese & Sons Company, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, USA. But the Pittsburgh is spelled without an H. Now this only happened between the years 1890 and 1911. Now after some protesting, they added the H back to the common spelling. Now this means that these engines were probably built sometime within that time period, which is older than the Belle. They may have been on another steamboat or in a warehouse and put on the Belle when she was built. And these are what turns the paddle wheel. So now we're in the boiler room or firebox. This is the warmest part of the Belle, especially when the furnaces are going. So we're a steamboat. We have the engines that you saw in the pilot house, but none of that works unless you make steam. And this is where the steam is created. The furnaces are lit by the fireman. Now our fireman doesn't put out fires, they actually start them and then maintain them. So this is where the furnaces heat up the water that we draw from the river itself while we're cruising. That water is heated up in the boilers, which are behind this section right here. That creates steam. Once the steam is created at the top, they pipe it off to the engine room to be used by the engines or any other system that would need it. So running a steamboat is a team effort between the captain and pilot, the engineer, and the fireman. They all have to communicate and work together in order to make the boat run smoothly. We run the Belle the same way as when she was built in 1914. Thank you for watching this video. You should come down to the river sometime and take a cruise on the Belle of Louisville on the beautiful Ohio River.